Hey everyone, we are here in beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona at the 6th annual Brand Innovators Sports Marketing Summit and Upfront. We are on day 3 and I am David Teicher, Chief Content Officer, backstage with Ricardo Marques from Michelob Ultra. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
We really appreciate you spending your time sharing with Brand Innovators. You just finished your main stage fireside chat, and we're going to talk a little bit more here about the worlds of cultural relevance and Super Bowl advertising. So you ready?
Absolutely, ready to go.
So before we dive in, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your remit within the organization, and kind of what you're here for this week?
Well, super excited to be here. I mean, this is proper beer drinking weather coming from New York, right?
Yeah, I'm a Jersey guy, so I'm right there. This is summertime now.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. Look, I've been with the company for many years, 18 years to be precise, and I have the pleasure of leading the Michelob Ultra brand since 2020, right? So this brand is our top growth engine for Anheuser-Busch in terms of our portfolio and how well it's doing in the US and even beyond the US.
That's amazing. Well, again, thank you for being here. I know this is like the busiest week of the year, right? We say it's the Super Bowl for the NFL, but it's also the biggest week for our industry. So we appreciate you being here. So let's dive right in. Every industry event has its buzzwords. When we were at CES in Vegas just a few weeks ago, it was all about the metaverse. It was all about AI. Here this week, the buzzword du jour is cultural relevance. And it's this ever elusive, being top of mind for your consumers, chasing it. What does it mean for you? And is it important for brands to be culturally relevant at the end of the day, to do what they want to do and to sell what they want to sell?
Absolutely, and more than ever, right? And for me, the simple way I look at it is brands that want to be culturally relevant, or in other words, they don't want to waste the time of their audience, right? Every time we engage with our audience, right, there's an exchange of time invested into the content that we're putting in front of them. And that's why it is important for brands to put stuff that is relevant for them, right? If you unpack cultural relevance, you think about being timely, right, in terms of what's happening right now, and of course having something of value that is worthy of somebody's time to engage with,
sure,
right? And why is that so important today? I mean, more than ever, brands have been, and especially now, looking to cut through and get attention, and paid media doesn't get us all the way there, right? So it is important that the content, the initiatives you're putting out there have traction beyond the media dollars that you're spending behind it. And we have many great examples over the past few years with Michelob Ultra, where we try to do things a little different, to lean into what's happening in the moment, to deliver our brand point of view around enjoyment, and cut through and connect with our audience. And I can think about one of them that is through the pandemic. I mean, we all remember the day that NBA came out and canceled the season, right? That was the moment I think everybody looked at what was going on and kind of was a wake-up call. And at that moment, I mean, fans could not walk into an arena and watch their favorite basketball teams, right? Just across all the sports.
Right.
At that time, leaning into the moment, understanding what our audience was looking for and what we could do, we unlocked one of the initiatives for Michelob Ultra that I'm most proud of, which was Michelob Ultra Courtside. You'll probably remember watching the games through the pandemic, the screens wrapped around the arena, which we did in partnership with the NBA themselves, of course, and Microsoft.
Sure.
And we created something that was incredibly needed, relevant for that particular moment in time. So that for me kind of summarizes this idea of cultural relevance that we're discussing here this week.
I love that. It's also, I mean, the value exchange that you mentioned is so key, right? If you're asking to be part of their, right, to be relevant, that you have to make sure that you're delivering the value. So I love that. So let's keep it going. So obviously we're here for Super Bowl week, and a lot of the conversation is around Super Bowl ads. You have a parallel conversation going on in the ad industry right now. The pendulum swinging all over the place between brand and performance. Traditionally, sports marketing and Super Bowl advertising has been typically, I mean, I'm not the expert, but typically thought of as the biggest brand play that you can make, right? The biggest investment in brand and awareness. But with such a big emphasis on performance and impact, how do you think about making sure that you're delivering on the bottom line and driving the results that you want to see? Is it still all about brand? Are there other things that you're looking for? What's your take on that?
I think those two things go together, right? Brand, what we do for the brand to build a brand for the long term, and short term performance. Those are part of the same equation. I'll give you the example of the campaign we're super excited about for this year's Super Bowl, which is probably our most commercially integrated plan we've ever had for Michelob Ultra. And it started with our special edition golf pack that is on shelf since January 15th.
Okay.
It has a QR code, and it is thematically aligned with the Super Bowl spot that we have, which is Caddyshack inspired. Add to that the partnership we had with Netflix to promote Full Swing, right? So we're looking to build a plan, or we did build a plan that went way beyond the 60-second TV spot into a partnership with an entertainment company like Netflix, to a special edition pack, to an event that we're actually bringing on the ground here in Phoenix on Saturday, to bite-sized content and a partnership with Instacart to lean into the convenience of ordering beer online. So I guess what I'm saying is, to leverage the Super Bowl stage, the first thing that marketers should think about is going beyond the spot. Of course, the spot itself needs to be really good because we're paying top dollar for those seconds on Sunday, but you have to go beyond that. Secondly, it is very important for brands to use the Super Bowl stage not as a one-off, but as a platform to set up the brand for the rest of the year, right? That's when it starts really, really making sense, because it's not just about the weeks leading up to Super Bowl or just Super Bowl Sunday. It is about basically igniting the year and having a fast start, strong start for your brand, and continuing that narrative throughout the year. So those two things are really, really important to maximize the amazing opportunity that at the end of the day is a Super Bowl. Think about it, 100 million people sitting, watching, leaning in and waiting for what the brands are bringing. I mean, that's pretty special.
Yeah, and you hit on, I think, a recurring theme that we're hearing, right? As it is the biggest investment, it is the biggest, an amazing, right, an event with so many viewers, but it's also one day. There's also 364 days of the year that you have to think about. So how can you give it legs? How can you make sure you're getting the most out of that investment that extends, before and after, right? So definitely the...
And the last thing I'd say on that topic is of course, part of that is delivering what your point of view as a brand is. The temptation could be to fall into a direction that would stand out and grab attention on Super Bowl Sunday, but if it's not tied to what you're all about as a brand, with your point of view, then it doesn't set you up for the long term. It doesn't build a brand equity for the long term. So I think all of that is...
Exactly. So actually segues nicely into my next question, which is, right, we're talking about sports and Super Bowl, but the broader marketing plan includes so much more. So how do you think about the role that sports and again, whether it's Super Bowl or just the role of sports in general plays within that broader strategy, right? What does that puzzle look like?
Absolutely. I mean, a couple of things. One is, when we think about beer, of course, sports viewing is a key consumption occasion for beer, so for us it is incredibly relevant. Secondly, when you look at the top 100 most watched shows on TV over the past year, 90% of those were sports related, right? So it is a big moment where there's a lot of eyeballs around sports,
and mostly still live viewership,
and live viewership, exactly right. So key beer occasion, grabbing attention from consumers coast to coast, and then again, it is a key form of entertainment. So for any brand, really, it is an opportunity to lean in and take advantage of that platform. For us, with Michelob Ultra, it has even an additional benefit, which is the fact that Michelob Ultra was a pioneer in terms of promoting active enjoyment. This idea of active enjoyment, you can be active and still enjoy a beer at the end of the day. And sports are again part of that lifestyle, and the message that we're bringing forward around it's only worth it if you enjoy it. So for us, it makes a ton of sense. Now, what we try to do is, again, going beyond just showing up and buying advertising, which is certainly a very important part of our mix.
Of course.
But also surprising with different ways to entertain and reach our audience. And I'll give you another example. last year, we partnered with John McEnroe, the legendary John McEnroe, to bring him to play a real tennis match against different avatars of himself throughout the years, mimicking the best years of his career, right? So we imagine this, right? How do you bring a real human being on a tennis court to play against an avatar of himself, right? And create a show. So we created a 1-hour show, which ESPN then came in, partnered with us. The show was so successful in the US that was actually aired in 52 countries around the world.
Wow.
So it was, part of the show was a reflection of John McEnroe looking back at his career, delivering a message of enjoyment to say, hey, just enjoy the ride. Don't be too intense, maybe as I was, and have fun out there in whatever you're doing. But then the tech behind it, I mean, we had 4 robotic arms. We had a missed screen because the ball had to go through, back and forward. We had an AI system that analyzed more than 1,000 games of John McEnroe to be able to mimic his style of play from 1985. So we combined actually 7 different pieces of technology for the first time ever to create a piece of branded entertainment that had never been done before. And that is the type of stuff that you can and should do as a brand in the world of sports, going beyond the activation on the ground, going beyond buying the advertising, but creating branded entertainment, content that people want to watch and want to share.
That is fascinating. I feel like we could talk about that activation alone for hours. So maybe next time we'll dive into that because that's fascinating. But it's also a nice segue to my last question, or we'll call it the penultimate question, which is, and maybe this is the example. These are examples of it, but we've noticed, right, as an industry, a lot has changed over the last few years. Consumption habits, viewing habits, the way people, right, like whether it's time delayed viewing, streaming, especially when it comes to sports and younger viewers, all these habits are changing. The pandemic accelerated that perhaps in a lot of ways, and obviously like we talked about with your work in the NBA, changed a lot of our fans' ability to engage with their favorite teams and watch their favorite teams. How has the field of sports marketing evolved over the last few years?
I mean, it's a great example of everything you just described. I mean, all the changes that we've been watching in terms of how the media landscape evolved, how people are spending their time, and all of those affected, the world at large, and of course the world of sports and how people consume sports as well. This is interesting because it takes me to your very first question of our conversation, which is around cultural relevance, right? This is exactly why it is so important, so critical for brands to be able to lean into what's happening now, being agile. Like I can tell you that today, for example, with Michelob Ultra, we pretty much operate like a newsroom, right, of the New York Times, of CNN, right? We look at what's happening out there in the world. Doesn't mean that we will lean into every single conversation, right? But if there's one that clicks and makes sense for our point of view, then we move quickly to act. And I'll give you a great example of that. Last year, you probably saw that image that went viral with the then named Michelob guy, right? When Tiger was, in the middle of, swinging the club, there is a shot that is caught. Everybody was holding their phones, and there was this one guy in the crowd that was holding a Michelob Ultra and just enjoying the moment. And that for us was, all right, we need to lean in now, right? Because this, not just because it's trending, not just because he has our product in hand, but because it's our point of view in one shot.
Right.
It's only worth it if you enjoy it. And this is what I mean by addressing all the changes and how the world is changing so rapidly. It actually forces brands to go back to the basics even more, which is be very aware of your point of view, lean into your strategy, be agile, operate like a newsroom, and push the envelope. Challenge status quo, deliver different experiences, different types of branded entertainment in a way to be relevant, right? So I would say ultimately it has never been a most exciting time for brands and marketers if you have the willingness to lean in, if you have great agency partners, if you have an amazing team that is excited about the business. You can do amazing things.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here and for sharing with us. I think that our community is going to take a lot out of this, so we really appreciate you being here. Last question. You got to take the football.
Ooh.
Who you got, Chiefs or Eagles?
This is gonna get me in trouble, I feel.
You can call for a tie if you don't want to pick. That's okay. We don't want to get you in trouble.
No, I'm gonna risk. I'm gonna risk this one. I am feeling that the Eagles are gonna take this one.
All right.
I'm feeling the Eagles. Yeah.
We're 50-50 now with our backstage interview speakers. I think we got 2 for the Eagles. We got 2 for the Chiefs so far today. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much.
I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. I hope everything's really successful, and we'll have you back again soon.
Thank you. I'd love to.